Hi everyone, I'm one of your co-hosts, Nathan Poinsette of the BullCast webcast series. For those of you who do not know, I'm the chairman of the Student Green Energy Fund here on campus. I'm one of your senators for student government, and I'm also the chair of recruitment for USF ambassadors. Today, we're going to be talking about a variety of items, from manatees to sustainability. So sit back and enjoy, and I'll see you guys later.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much, Nathan, for that great introduction to our episode this evening. My name is Audrey Ward and I will be your co-host this evening. With me, I have our wonderful guest this evening, Kierstyn Benjamin. She is our guest for the evening with the experience about saving this manatee that happened about 2 weeks ago on our campus here in the beautiful St. Petersburg campus of USF. How are you this evening?
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. We really
course.
appreciate it. So to start off, I would love to know, how was your experience in that day? Take me back to that day.
Yeah, so I was sitting in the library just doing homework, and I like to sit in the library at a place I can see the bay, and I usually see dolphins and stuff in the bay while I'm doing homework, so I just happened to look up at a perfect time where his little nose popped up, and I didn't think of anything at first, and then I saw it pop up a couple more times, so I wanted to go investigate it just to see what was going on, because this isn't normally something I see in the bay. So when I went and saw him, he was just laying on the bottom by himself, so I was a little concerned because this was a strange place to see such a small manatee, especially if it was by itself. So I decided to call FWC, and I found their hotline through their Instagram. And I just called them and I was like, hey, I found a baby manatee. I'm just a little concerned. I'd rather someone come out and tell me that the manatee's fine than not know if anything were to happen with the manatee. So I took a couple pictures and videos just for myself, and then the person that I called, they asked for those pictures and videos, so I was able to send them over there, and they were able to determine from those pictures that they wanted to come see the manatee and investigate it for themselves.
So how long were you out there before you made the call?
I went out there around 10:30-ish, so I watched him for about like 10 minutes, and then I decided to call FWC, and it took maybe about like 20 to 30 minutes for FWC to come out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long did the rescue take? Once they arrived, how long did that take?
So they got there about like 11 o'clock-ish, and then they decided that they were going to bring the boat around, so it took a little bit longer. So from the time that they like arrived, from 11 o'clock, and he was all like loaded up in the boat at, not in the boat, in the truck at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
Yeah,
wow.
so it was a good portion of my day. Yes.
A good portion of the day. And so they made the decision over the phone to you that they were going to come out because he needed to be rescued, right?
Yeah, so
based on the footage that
yes,
you sent.
The pictures and videos that I was able to send the person I was on the phone with, those were the ones that they were actually able to determine that he had cold stress and that they would actually need to rescue him, because when they came in, the tide was too high, so he was able to sink a little bit lower to the bottom. So they weren't able to see him as well because he was on closer to the bottom. So since I was able to get pictures when he was a little bit more surfaced, they could see the white spots on him.
Oh. And for you as a marine biology student, what field of the FWC do you want to follow after seeing that experience?
Yeah, after being with this experience, it really opened my eyes to the rescue and rehabilitation part of marine science. It's always been like an idea for me of what I wanted to do in the future, but I think this really solidified it.
And have you had like previous experiences with studying animals in distress from a course project by any chance, or how did you see that this hotline that you found, the FWC, did need to come out?
Yeah, so I actually follow FWC on Instagram, so they post pretty often all of their updates of all of like their animals and all of like their rescues and stuff that they do. So I saw pretty frequently that they were posting about manatees that were in need and needed help. So I just went on their Instagram, and I remembered that I saw those posts, so I was able to go on Instagram, and I found the phone number off one of their posts.
Wow. And so when did you feel relieved? Like, when did you know that he was going to be in safe hands?
As soon as I saw them like pull the boat around, I was like, okay, he's A-okay. He's got it from here.
Got it.
Yes.
And did you have some friends that were also around you that could tell that something needed to be done to the manatee?
I was
or were you
by myself when
by
I found him.
yourself?
Yeah, and then I called my friend. I was like, hey, you need to come see this. So she got to see it as well.
That's great to have the
Yes.
support, because
Oh,
I
for
know
sure.
it can be a lot of pressure
It
to
definitely was,
experience
yes.
a live animal needing assistance, and the fact that FWC made it clear that he needed to be rescued, right? If not, he would have died, right? Was that the case?
I'm assuming because he had cold stress and he was just like very stationary. He was coming up for breath every so often, but he wasn't moving around too much. The only movement he did was after just me being out there, a ton of students came out and kind of sort of like surrounded the seawall. So all of that commotion and all of like the talking kind of scared him off into the water, even though FWC was like, hey guys, you guys need to quiet it down. People still weren't listening to them.
And did FWC tell you that it was in cold stress,
Yeah.
or did you know from class that it was cold stress that he was experiencing?
Yeah, so I didn't initially know that he had cold stress. I was just concerned because he was by himself in a very strange location to find a manatee.
Okay.
So once they loaded him all up, the coordinator came over and just let me know that he's going to Zoo Tampa and that he had cold stress, but he's being taken care of now.
Okay. So you didn't really know what
I
cold
did not
stress
realize,
was.
no, not at first.
Not at first, but now you
But now
have a
I
better
know.
understanding. And so you are a junior, right?
Yes, I am.
When you graduate, I know this is a few years out.
A couple years.
But what do you plan on in the future? Do you want to get involved with the FWC? Do you want to do rescues for the FWC?
Yeah, I think this whole experience really opened my eyes to the rescue and rehabilitation part. So I am looking into internships to hopefully get my foot in the door.
Definitely. Well, that's being at this campus, as we all know, we are right on the water. So as a marine biology student, you know that.
It's very lucky to be right here, to be able to just like do homework and just study and just be able to look out in the water and see wildlife on a daily basis.
It is pretty lucky, aren't we?
Very, very lucky.
So with that experience, like having experienced that now, being able to call the hotline and witness the rescue, have you experienced a rescue before?
I have not. I've always
or called the hotline before?
I have not. No, not at all. I haven't been involved in this kind of thing at all. So I've always like seen it online and stuff, and like I've seen all of like the release videos and all of that, but I've never been able to be a part of it, and it's really cool to be a part of it now.
Well, that's, I'm sure you have a memory
For
here on our campus that you can look back on, and nobody else in your major would have that now, so you stand out.
I do, just a little.
Just a little bit. And so with that experience that you witnessed, you want to get involved with the FWC now?
For sure, yes.
That's wonderful. And our viewers, actually, I just before this interview got a little update from ours truly about our little manatee here that got rescued a couple weeks ago. Kierstyn, would you like to share the information?
Yeah, so yesterday I was actually able to go visit Zoo Tampa, where he is currently being treated. And I did the manatee behind the scenes tour, so I was able to go visit him and get a closer look at him. And I found out that his name is Burger, and it's because he was cold, so it's like Burr, and he was found in the St. Petersburg, so Burger, which is amazing.
I love that name.
Yes.
I hope that you have some time to check on him frequently now.
Yes. I do have a Zoo membership now, so I will be there more often.
That's wonderful. Well, maybe we can get a webcam
That would be good.
we can see on our campus of checking in on him, right?
That'd be really cool.
That'd be great. Well, I really do appreciate Kierstyn so much for you coming on to our show today. I had so much fun myself watching it and just learning more about your story
of
with
course.
this
Thank you so much for
experience.
having me.
So hopefully will stick around, and our viewers can stick around for the rest of our show. Here we have another great interview coming up, a pre-recorded interview with Courtney, our other co-host. She's going to be interviewing Andy Garrett. He is the leader for the FWC.
Hello everybody, I'm with Florida's Manatee Rescue Coordinator, Andy Garrett. Hello, how are you doing today?
How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. So walk me through the timeline of the call you received and the rescue.
Okay, so just a little bit of background on how we operate. We rely on the public to call an 800 number. So that's a wildlife alert hotline. And so we received a call from that wildlife alert hotline that when you call that number, it goes to our law enforcement. Then a dispatcher will send out the information through a text alert to whatever lab is responding, which is in this case was our lab. So we got that text alert, talked to the original complainant, and it was a student here at USF that had seen a manatee outside her window. I think maybe she was in the library and was concerned, went out and took a look at it, and then called us. So we got that information. Usually what we're trying to do is get an understanding of what's going on with the manatee, because sometimes what people are seeing is not necessarily something that needs to be rescued. So in this case, it was an animal that seemed like it was small. Time of year, it's winter time, so I think she realized it probably shouldn't be here this time of year and was maybe seeing some behaviors that she was concerned about. So from there we ask for photographs and video. I mean, the great thing about smartphones these days, which when I first started 24 years ago we didn't have, is that we can get that real-time information. And so we started seeing some photos and videos and like, okay, this doesn't seem quite right, time of year, you're saying it's small manatee. So we then called here in Bayboro Harbor, we have our FWRI's division, wildlife division headquarters, Fish and Wildlife Research Institute. We've got some of our manatee staff down here. They don't work on strandings per se, they do other things, but they have definitely some knowledge on manatee. So we had some of them come out and take a look, and they reported back what they were seeing. It still sounded like it was a case that we probably would want to rescue, and from there, once we determined we were going to rescue, we started getting our equipment ready and planning for the rescue.
Gotcha. And what was the condition of the manatee that day? And if you do know, what was like the temperature like in the water?
I mean, this time of year, I don't know exactly what the temperature was, but you know, it was a sunny day, but it was cooler. There's a bit of a breeze. The water temperature is probably somewhere in the mid 60s to upper 60s, which for a manatee, especially a smaller manatee, can be pretty cold this time of year. Yeah.
And it's reported that it was suffering from cold stress. Can you talk me through what that is?
Yeah, it's a syndrome. It's kind of a collective grouping of different symptoms. But manatees, when the water temperature gets below 68 degrees Fahrenheit, will seek out warm water. Warm water can be at a natural spring. It can be a power plant discharge. It can be just a little trickle of water from some other source. But they're trying to stay warm. They're trying to find that warm water. And this is why some manatees that are out of Florida, that sometimes may be in Louisiana or Mississippi, Alabama, or up the mid-Atlantic, will migrate back to Florida. So there'll be a mass migration once that water temperature starts to drop. So yeah, that's the kind of the temperature threshold. And then if they don't get to warm water, they stop eating, they start getting sick. What they do is, like, when you go out on a cold day and your hands get cold, your body's trying to conserve that heat inside your body by not having circulation go to your fingers. That's kind of what manatees do as well in their flippers and their face. So what ends up happening is that they get little nicks and cuts and scrapes, and that area doesn't get the blood, so it doesn't have the healing properties, and they start getting some lesions on them, which this animal had. They stop eating, which I mentioned before, but so they start losing body fat. Anyway, it's kind of cascades down to a situation where it can be lethal.
Gotcha. And it's reported now that the manatee is at Zoo Tampa for rehabilitation. Do you know what the rehabilitation kind of process will look like for it?
Yeah, so, you know, depending on the reason for rescue and what the ailments are, you know, the animals will be treated for that. In the case of a cold stress animal, a lot of times they put it in a warm tank, and for, again, a manatee, it's probably going to be water temperatures above 80 degrees Fahrenheit. They'll probably tube feed the animal to make sure it can start, you know, processing, because if they haven't been eating for a while, sometimes that's a difficulty, is getting the nutrients to start getting, you know, putting on some weight again. And then just treating as they come. They probably, you know, a lot of times they give it antibiotics to treat the lesions and the infections that they're dealing with, and just trying to return the animal around. Sometimes if the animal's been dealing with it for a long time, they're really chronically cold stressed, it takes a long time, and you'll actually see some of the skin start to come off, and because that skin was dead by not getting the circulation, not getting the blood. So, but it can be a long process. And again, this animal is also smaller. I mean, we were estimating maybe a 2 to 3 year old, which is, they're with their moms for about 2 years. So this, usually we see this sometimes in winter where they didn't have a mom to follow to warm water, and they get kind of lost. So that often happens with some of these cases, we think. So it'll be a process depending on how well it recovers. It may be held all the way until next winter and released at a warm water site in the wintertime.
And what kind of environmental or human impacts are harming these animals or a threat to them at the moment?
Yeah, I think our biggest one that we deal with is watercraft impacts and watercraft strikes. We see a fair amount of animals every year that are hit by boats, and so the damage that results from that. So any part of the boat that might hit them. So we have impact injuries, but we also have the cut injuries from the propeller or the skeg or sharp aspects. Also fishing, we do get a lot of fishing line ingestions and monofilament wraps. We get, sometimes we get crab traps wrapped around their flippers and around their bodies. So I'd say those are the two biggest ones, are the watercraft and the fishing entanglements.
Yeah. And there are laws that protect these manatees from those kind of impacts, right?
There are federal and state laws. They are marine mammals, so they're protected under Marine Mammal Protection Act. They also are protected under the Endangered Species Act. They were listed as endangered, but in 2015, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service kind of downgraded them to threatened. But because they're still threatened, they're still protected and have a lot of protections under the Endangered Species Act.
Gotcha. And what is the reality of the manatee lifestyle, and what can we do to protect them?
So manatees are unique marine mammal species in the fact that they are kind of in our world often. They're not an offshore species. They're right in the coastal areas and the estuaries and in our backyards. So there's a lot of overlap, a lot of potential interactions between humans and manatees. So what we do can directly impact a manatee. So not throwing our garbage in the water, not throwing our fishing line, discarding fishing line, things that they can become entangled in, not getting them acclimated to us by trying to feed them. Those are the bigger impacts, yep. And obeying the speed zones when you're operating a vessel, if you're going through a manatee zone or slow speed zone, obeying those so that, minimizing those potential impacts from the watercraft.
And besides manatees, what other kind of animals should we be looking out for that are endangered and are impacted by us?
Pretty much all wild animals can be impacted by humans. On my end, the marine mammal species, pretty much all marine mammals are impacted by humans in some way. Even the offshore species, like the large whales. In Florida in the wintertime, off the northeast coast, we get the North Atlantic right whale. Those also are subjected to potential watercraft from large ships and entanglements and fishing gear. So, we impact these animals a lot of different ways.
Gotcha. And what message do you want to spread to everyone to get this message out that we should?
The big thing for us is that we really ask the public to help us because we don't have patrols in the water looking for sick and injured manatees every day. We really rely on that 800 number for people to call, just like that happened here on campus. Call us, even if you're not 100% sure, because again, we can diagnose what's going on, sometimes just by talking to someone, looking at a photo, looking at a video, and if it is something that needs to be rescued, we'll respond. We also do respond to the dead animals too, and we will get information off the carcasses. Sometimes we choose to actually do a full necropsy and try to determine why the animal died, and that all goes and feeds our management. So that's the big thing for me, is just, call us when you see something.
All right. Thank you so much for spending your time with us, and we're going to send it back to our host. Thank you.
Hey everyone, Nathan again. Right now I'm going to be discussing with you all a little information about the Student Green Energy Fund. So STUEP, or the Student Green Energy Fund, is one of the largest sustainable student organizations here at the St. Petersburg campus. And we also have one of the largest budgets of any organizations at USF. So due to a nominal student fee of $1 per credit hour, we have over $300,000 for sustainable initiatives, proposals, and any type of projects that students want to bring forward to the Student Green Energy Fund. So like I mentioned before, currently I'm the chair, but I have a vice chair. Her name is Iris. Jennifer, she handles all of our flyers and marketing, and Caitlin is our proposal advisor. And I can't forget Mr. Matt, he's our advisor of the organization in general. We're having our next general body meeting on February 8th from 3:30 to 4:30 in USC 262. So hopefully I get to see you guys there. But I do have some announcements to make for you all as well. Did you know that this month is actually Manatee Awareness Month? Woo, go manatees. And if you ever see any type of wildlife, or I should say creatures, in the water that might need some help, there is a hotline that you can dial. The number is 888-404-3922. 888-404-3922. So if you ever see any type of sea creature in distress, don't hesitate to reach out to the proper people. Also, there is a bull market happening February 6th from 9:30 to 1:30 here at the St. Petersburg campus. And lastly, of course, do not forget to chime into our next episode. That's going to be on February 6th at 5 p.m. We're going to be discussing student life. This was awesome, and I'll catch you guys there. Go Bulls.